At 2:14 a.m., under a bruised sky smothered by low, churning clouds, the wind sliced across the abandoned research outpost in northern Nevada. The desert, normally silent, vibrated with a faint mechanical pulse, like a heartbeat buried beneath sand and steel. Floodlights flickered weakly along the perimeter fence, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched like trembling fingers across the cracked concrete. Inside Hangar 12, a single figure moved through the darkness. Elias Mercer, a maintenance technician who was never supposed to be here alone, pushed open the reinforced door with a groan. A dust storm outside hammered against the metal walls, making the entire structure shudder like a living thing. Each step he took echoed unnaturally, as if the sound refused to die the way it should. He paused. Something felt off. The air itself seemed heavier, thick, charged, almost metallic. He checked his watch. He wasn't late. He wasn't early. He simply wasn't meant to be anywhere near Lab C, a sealed chamber rumored to contain a classified experiment everyone pretended didn't exist. But tonight, the alarms triggered, and protocol sent Elias, just a technician, just a nobody, to investigate. As he approached the central corridor, a faint blue glow trembled beneath the door of the restricted lab. It wasn't the sterile white of normal equipment. It wasn't emergency lighting. It was something else, something that moved like liquid light rippling against the floor. Elias froze. That color didn't exist in any machine he had ever serviced. He swallowed hard and whispered to himself, "This shouldn't be here." The glow pulsed in response, like it heard him. With trembling fingers, he swiped his access card. The locking mechanism hesitated, clicked twice, then slid open with a reluctant hiss, as if the door itself didn't want to cooperate. The glow intensified, washing over him in waves of cold light. Inside Hangar 12, the lab looked untouched. Benches perfectly arranged, instruments neatly covered, no signs of movement. Except for the enormous steel frame bolted into the center of the chamber. A circular aperture, 3 meters across, assembled with coils, plates, and metal segments etched with patterns Elias didn't recognize. He stepped closer. Something on the machine was humming, not loud, but wrong, like a whisper layered beneath electricity. The aperture wasn't supposed to power up without authorization. It wasn't even supposed to be operational. The official reports said the project had been shut down 4 years ago after an incident. Yet here it was, alive. A thin film of vibrating blue light stretched across the inner rim of the circular gateway, bending gently inward like a sheet pulled by invisible gravity. When Elias leaned in, the surface shifted, distorting his reflection, not like a mirror, but like a memory being rewritten in real time. His throat tightened. His mind screamed to step back. But the glow pulled him in with a curiosity no human being should ever feel. A static crackle surged across the surface. The light expanded, and the impossible happened. The doorway opened itself. Not mechanically, not physically. It opened like a wound in reality. Elias staggered back, whispering the only words his brain could form. This shouldn't exist. And yet it did. And it was already awake. Long before Elias Mercer stood trembling beneath the unnatural blue glow, the project that created the door had another name. A name erased from every database, every archive, every physical record except one. Project Sphinx. It began in 1987, buried deep within a classified division of the Department of Defense known only to 23 people. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, it was humanity's first attempt to replicate a phenomenon described in two intercepted documents from the Soviet Union, documents the Kremlin publicly denied, destroyed, and later hunted anyone associated with. Those documents spoke of transitory ruptures, fractures in space-time detected for milliseconds during high-energy experiments. Most scientists dismiss the findings as noise, miscalibration, atmospheric interference. But one man didn't. Dr. Alden Rowe, a theoretical physicist with a reputation for chasing impossible ideas, insisted the Soviets had stumbled onto something extraordinary, a natural weakness, a thin place where the fabric of reality trembled. He convinced the Pentagon that if they could artificially reproduce such a rupture and stabilize it for more than a few milliseconds, they might discover a new source of energy, a shortcut through space-time, or, as Rowe hinted in private, a doorway to somewhere else. The funding was approved under strict secrecy. No public oversight, no civilian review. Even Congress didn't know. But Rowe made one critical mistake. He believed the phenomenon was passive, like a door you must choose to open. It wasn't. The first attempt occurred on May 3, 1991, at 12:07 p.m. The aperture activated for exactly 1.4 seconds. What happened in those 1.4 seconds shattered Rowe's confidence forever. The energy signature didn't match any known physical law. The air inside the chamber became heavier, vibrating at frequencies no microphone could record. And one researcher, standing too close, collapsed into hysterical panic, insisting he had heard something trying to speak. After that day, the team voted unanimously to shut everything down. But Rowe refused. He believed they were close, too close to stop. His obsession grew. He worked alone, locked himself inside the facility, scribbling equations on walls and windows. Some claimed he stopped sleeping, that he developed a fear of mirrors, that he began speaking to the machine as if it were listening. Then came Event Zero. Security footage, later deleted, captured the aperture activating without command. The blue light emerged for the first time, folding inward like a living membrane. The chamber's temperature dropped to freezing within seconds. Rowe stepped forward, whispering something no microphone captured. And then he vanished. Not pulled, not vaporized, not disintegrated. He simply wasn't there anymore. Project Sphinx was sealed by presidential order the next morning. The lab was labeled unsafe, the technology dismantled, and every scientist involved reassigned or silenced. Except, the parts weren't actually destroyed. They were stored, reassembled, and forgotten, until the night Elias arrived, following a routine maintenance alert triggered by a machine that was never supposed to power up again. The irony? The humans who built the door spent decades trying to close it, but the door had never agreed to stay closed. The moment the blue membrane widened open and the door inhaled the air around it, Elias felt something humans were never meant to feel, a pressure that didn't come from outside, but from inside his thoughts. Like a hand gently pressing against his memories, testing them, searching through them as if they belonged to someone else. He stumbled backwards, clutching the edge of a metal table. The fluorescent lights flickered, dimmed, then brightened in a violent pulse. Every tool on the nearby shelves began vibrating in perfect unison, as though responding to a silent frequency only the machine could hear. Elias tried to speak, but the words broke in his throat. He wasn't alone in the room, not physically. There was no visible presence, but emotionally, mentally. Something on the other side of the door was aware of him, and it was curious. Instinct screamed at him to run, but another part, a darker, stranger part, felt drawn to the impossible truth unfurling in front of him. Humans always crave answers, even when answers lead directly to their ruin. Then it began. A low, vibrating hum rippled through the chamber. His vision blurred, his hearing sharpened. For a split second, he thought he could see shapes moving behind the blue sheet of light, shadows that didn't resemble any biological form he recognized. They flickered, elongated, twisted as if made of smoke pulled through water. The hum intensified. His mind surged with images that weren't his. A fragment of a city he'd never seen. A sunrise with two suns. Towers not built by human hands. The sensation of being watched from above, as if I were nothing more than an insect under glass. He gasped and dropped to his knees. This wasn't a doorway to another place. It was a doorway to another viewer. Something was looking back. Down the hallway, alarms began to blare. Red lights spun wildly. Doors sealed shut, one after another. The facility activated Containment Protocol Black, the highest emergency level, something even Elias had only seen in training manuals covered in redacted lines. He forced himself to his feet. He had to shut it down. He had to break the connection before... A sudden shift in air pressure knocked him backward. Papers launched into the air, swirling in a miniature storm. Metal tools rattled, sliding across the floor toward the expanding aperture. The door wasn't just open, it was pulling. Not like a vacuum. No air was being drained. It was pulling at structure, at matter, at concepts, as if reality itself were loosening around the edges. Elias screamed for help, even though he knew no one would hear him. Everyone else was locked outside the emergency barrier. For a moment, he thought the machine would consume the entire room. But instead, the pull suddenly softened, as if whatever was on the other side had changed its focus. Not on the room, on him. His mind filled with a single, overwhelming sensation. Recognition. The door knew him now. Not his name, not his face, but his fear. And fear is the oldest bridge between worlds. Humanity had built something it could not understand, but the true terror wasn't that the door had opened. It was that something beyond it wanted to step through. Elias stood trembling before the shimmering aperture, his breath shallow, his heartbeat erratic, his mind struggling to remain his own. The blue membrane no longer pulsed violently. It wavered gently, almost calmly, like a living eye adjusting focus. For the first time since entering the chamber, Elias sensed something unsettling. The door wasn't malfunctioning. It was communicating. The hum faded, replaced by a resonant silence so thick it felt physical. When Elias reached out a shaking hand, not to touch the membrane, but simply to feel the air near it, he realized the temperature was rising, not returning to normal, but warming beyond what the thermometer on the wall could register. He whispered, "What are you?" The membrane responded, not with sound, but with a ripple that moved from center to edge, like a heartbeat slowing down to reveal intent. For a moment, Elias saw his reflection on the surface, but it wasn't the reflection of the man he knew. It was altered, a version of himself standing straighter, eyes hollow, lacking any warmth or humanity. A version that had already walked through. His stomach dropped. The last surviving documents from Project Sphinx warned of something Rowe called asymmetric passage, a theoretical idea suggesting that a doorway between realities never exchanges matter equally. One side always takes more than it gives. One side always wins. One side always adapts faster. The door had been opened accidentally. It had been waiting. Not for commands, not for energy, but for a mind it could anchor to. Humans rarely realize when they are being chosen. The sirens outside the chamber shut off abruptly. A mechanized voice echoed through the intercom. Emergency override accepted. Manual access authorized. Elias spun around. No one was at the control booth. No human had typed that command. The door had. With a hiss, the security bolts disengaged. The reinforced barrier behind him, the one designed to lock the lab down for eternity, slid open as if inviting him to leave. Except Elias saw the truth. He wasn't being allowed to escape. He was being released. The membrane expanded once more, thinning until it resembled a sheet of liquid glass. Behind it, shapes solidified. Not monstrous, not alien in the traditional sense, nothing so obvious. Instead, he saw structures, geometric patterns folding in ways the human mind was never meant to witness, and in the center, a presence, silent, patient, observant. It wasn't trying to enter our world, it was mapping it. Every fear he felt, every memory, every doubt reflected back into the aperture like data being absorbed. Dr. Rowe hadn't been taken, he had been replicated. Elias understood then why the project had been buried, why it had been erased, why every scientist who touched it either disappeared or ended their careers in silence. The door didn't lead to another place, it led to another version. A version that watched us, studied us, prepared for us. A version that, once aware of its counterpart, would eventually want to come through. Elias backed away, eyes locked on the membrane, whispering the final thought that any human standing in his place would feel, but never dare speak out loud. We didn't open the most dangerous door in history. We answered it. The membrane pulsed once, like acknowledgement, and then everything went dark.